course. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. And right off the top, congratulations. How does it feel to once again be a Juno nominee? Because you already know what it's like to be a nominee and a winner.
Oh, thanks, Rudy. You know what? This one was a surprise. Kind of as with the self-titled record a few years ago, Winter Songs falls a little bit between genre cracks. And so it was a real delight and surprise to get nominated this year.
Okay, so why did you decide to submit it if you were thinking, I don't know?
Yeah, it's interesting. There was my husband and co-producer Ben Whitman and we had some debate, and I actually debated a little bit with my publicist Victoria Lord as well, where we thought, well, should we enter it in adult contemporary, for example, or but then we thought, gosh, I'll end up in the same category as Michael Bublé. I mean, I don't think he is up for one this year. He's hosting, but just as an example, Jan Arden, Sarah McLachlan, Serena Ryder, like those are the artists that you see in the adult contemporary category, Jeremy Dutcher. And so, my feeling, Rudy, was that I am still fundamentally a jazz musician. That's still very much where I find my roots. And there are many facets of Winter Songs that rest firmly with that tradition. So even though it ventures into other territory, it still was the category that made best sense. And I'm thrilled that we ended up nominated.
So let's talk about this album, this Juno nominated album. Talk a little bit about the essence of it, the inspiration behind it, and putting this all together.
Yeah, so it was a long time in the making. It began in November of 2021.
Yeah.
I was at the Banff Center for Arts and Creativity, where I go to create most of my new work. It's a great privilege to have a relationship with the Banff Center. So I went out that way for my first 2-week long residency as a writer. That's the longest I had ever spent in Banff. And it felt like a huge luxury. And we were still kind of in the midst of the pandemic. Like that was when Omicron was becoming a going concern. But the center had reopened, and people within Canada's borders were invited out again to explore new work and participate in programs. I went as an independent. They gave me, pardon me, what's called a Fleck Fellowship. And so I was gifted a cabin in the woods, and I actually had one goal when I went out to the Banff Center, which was to create work inspired by the poetry of an amazing Indigenous writer from the Mishki-Gogamang Nation, Ojibwe Nation. But there I found myself looking out on these winter scenes, and the muse showed up, and that was where Winter Songs began. So I went with where the muse was taking things, and I still hope to collaborate further with this beautiful Indigenous poet whose work I just find so inspiring. But in that time, things went in a different direction, and then over the 3 years that followed, we went into the studio and we captured bed tracks, and then layered on Venuti String Quartet, and then another year or so passed, and my husband and co-producer Ben and we decided we would expand the project to involve a chamber orchestra. So it just kind of kept getting bigger and bigger, and then harp. And so we had the benefit of time, which, Rudy, was really only because it was a seasonal album. So, if the spring and summer rolled around of a given year, we realized, like, okay, the window to get this done is narrowing. And then if it looked like we couldn't do it, then we would have to wait another year. And it was in those ensuing months that the vision kept expanding.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you know what it's like to be a Juno nominee. Can you describe it, what it was like before when you were a Juno nominee and even winning? What's the whole process that you went through?
Yeah, it's such an honor, right? In terms of the industry, to be nominated is already huge, and then to win is also just extraordinary. And I mean, going to the Junos is very fun, but it's also kind of daunting. Like, if I'm honest, when I was nominated again this year, Of course, like predominant emotion was one of gratitude. But then I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to figure out what I wear for the red carpet. And, like twice, right? So two red carpet walks, one on the Saturday night and another on the Sunday night.
Yep.
And a lot of people who just watch the Junos and aren't necessarily like artists within the community, they assume that the big night is one night, that it's the Sunday
Yes.
night, the live broadcast. But no, for many of us, and especially those in the jazz community, in some ways, the bigger night is the Saturday night, because that's when our award will be announced. And you have to walk the red carpet both days. And it's like really fun, but it's also kind of overwhelming, right? So I would say I come to it with a mix of emotions, where on the one hand, it's such a thrill, it's so exciting. But on the other hand, it's a little overwhelming and daunting. Lots to be organized.
And let's break some kayfabe here too, because even though once you win, they hand you the award and you say what you need to say, you have to give it back because you don't get it until when?
Right, like weeks later. And one big question is how much of a speech does one prepare, right? So
Right.
so that first year that I won, Rudy, it was my second nomination, first win.
Yes.
And I did not have a speech prepared. And I had been nominated twice in the same category with my own album, but then also as the featured vocalist on Jody Prosnick's record. And Jody and I were sitting together. And we're going to be both at the Junos again this year, which is really fun. So Jody Prosnick and I are sitting at the same table, and she turns to me and she says, "Do you have anything prepared?" And we're looking at the menu because they, at that time, this was in 2019,
Yeah.
they had all the, because you've been there, they had all the awards on like a menu, right? So this is the order. And David Foster was being given his humanitarian award. And so we were getting closer to the Vocal Jazz Album of the Year category. And that was when Jody looked at me and she said, "Are you ready to like potentially go up and say something?" And I was like, "No." So I whipped out my phone and I started frantically thumbing out, the people I should acknowledge. And then when they called my name, I was so shocked. I was so shocked that I forgot my phone. And then I went up to the podium and I just wung it, I winged it. And of course, I forgot some key people
Yeah.
that to this day I still regret. But you just, it's all a whirlwind. It's all a
It is.
whirlwind. And more, I feel that artists are using that moment and that platform to speak their truth, and to not only say, thanks to my label, thanks to my team, thanks to funding bodies, thanks to my family, friends, etc. They're using it to make political statements, which I do admire. But again, that has to be, I think, very thoughtfully approached.
Oh, especially this year.
Oh my goodness. And we're seeing it already, right? Chantal Kreviazuk and the national anthem at the hockey game. And, I think there are a lot of people that are proud of her for doing that, and others who feel like maybe that wasn't the time, the place, or the means. But, I would say on balance, anytime an artist uses their platform to speak to something that is really important to them, I think good on them. Like, even if I maybe don't agree with the principles or what have you, I mean, and I'm just speaking completely,
Sure.
I'm not giving specific examples. I think it's admirable to use the platform that we have to speak our truth, but it can cause a stir. Yeah.
So are you ready? Are you ready to head down to Vancouver? Are you ready for all the gusto and, just waiting to find out if this is going to be another one for you? Are you prepared now?
Aw. Well, I'm thrilled. So the first thing Ben, my husband, and I did was we organized a babysitter for our son, so we could both go to Vancouver for the weekend. We'd love to bring Josh along, but it just doesn't make sense that he wouldn't be able to participate in most of the activities, and so that was step one. Then book the flights, book the hotels. And now working on red carpet looks again, which I always find daunting. I know some people very naturally take to the fashion side of things. I find it kind of overwhelming, but it's fun to be able to collaborate with like Canadian designers, for example,
Yeah.
and, give them a bit of a spotlight. And Rudy, if I'm honest, having you there, like having people that I know and love who are like part of my musical family, we're music industry family. That always really helps me. It feels very anchoring. Like anytime I've seen you on the red carpet, my shoulders come down several inches because I'm like, oh, it's Rudy, because you don't know what questions you're going to be asked. And sometimes you're put on the spot and, you just want to you want to honor the arts ecosystem and our country and the great, privilege of being nominated. And you want to just use that space and that platform well. And I think that you're somebody who really helps facilitate that because you care about the artists, and you're trying to get to the heart of the thing and not, going for whatever might be more sensationalist. So yeah, I appreciate that.
But I'm curious though, has our, school, Humber College, have they contacted you yet or have you
Yes.
heard anything? Oh,
They
great.
have. And in fact, you've just reminded me. So Guillermo Acosta, he reached out to me over social media a number of times, and Jason Marai sent me a direct message right away. Lots is going on at Humber as they launch the new building, this huge project. And so they've also wanted me to come down to the Lakeshore campus just to speak to the significance of that as somebody who attended Humber, 25 plus years ago. So I very much feel that Humber is still such a champion of their ambassadors and alumni and all that, as you know, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fantastic. Love it. Look, got to let you go, but I got to say again, congratulations. I'll see you in Vancouver, and my fingers are
Yes.
going to be crossed for you for another win. I hope you got room around there for another award because you absolutely deserve the nomination. Like I said,
Oh,
fingers are crossed for the win.
thanks, Rudy. Thanks so much. I'm excited to see you in my hometown, Vancouver.